Okay guys, good morning. We're out here. We got the truck right here. It's kind of weird. I never really work on this thing, so this is going to be a first. Let's just do an overview of what we have here. We have 2 lift spindles, 4-inch lift spindles. We have 2 brake line extensions because of the lift, obviously. Then it comes with this little bag. Comes with new retainer clips and new crush washers for the banjo side of the brake line. One goes on each side, and then you put a bolt through it and then put it in your caliper. Got a sticker here that has a scratch on it, kind of bummed about that. And we got the instructions. The instructions are pretty basic. I already went through them. You don't really need them. There's only a few things that I learned from this. It doesn't give you torque specs. I already have them all, so when I put them back together, I will go over those with you. Basically, it just tells you to unbolt everything, and then all the ball joints, you hit the side of the spindle with a hammer to break the ball joint loose. First things first, gotta pop these lugs off. 7/8. Using an impact with a non-impact socket. Let's go. Next is the goal to get the spindle by itself. So we're going to pull everything off. First we're going to start with the tie rod, and then we're going to do the caliper, and then we're going to do the hub, then we're going to do the ABS, and then we're going to do the upper, and then we're going to do the lower. Something like that, something like that. Some of these I used metric because it worked better, or I just didn't have the correct standard one. So for the tie rod, I'm using 21. So we're gonna break the tie rod loose first. That way we could spin this freely. Now to break a ball joint for the tie rod, for the upper and the lower, it says to use a hammer. I don't really like using a hammer, but it's efficient and it works if you don't have a ball joint puller. I do, but it's for a car, not a truck, so hammer it is. Now we're free to do whatever we want here. So the kit gives you 2 brake lines, the retainer clip, and 2 crush washers for each side, so 4 total. So you're going to take the bolt out of the caliper, and then I'll show you what to do so you don't mess up that bolt. And then right here I used a 13-inch wrench to do to the hard line. We're going to take the hard line off first, and then we're going to put this line on right away. You gotta do it quick, because the quicker you do it, the less brake fluid you lose. I don't want to make a mess, so we're going to wipe it off. Before we finish loosening the bolt, we're going to pull off the retainer clip, use the bracket to pry it off. There we go. And the directions say let the fluid run down through the line, and they say that because they want you to get the air out of there. So just do that, and then hold this up so gravity doesn't let any more fluid come out. Right here, this is a 7/16. We're going to use our 3/8 ratchet. Loosen the bolt on the caliper. Now the tricky part about this is this crush washer is like stuck to the bolt, so if you're not careful, you're going to mess up the threads on the bolt, messing with the crush washer. So what I did is I was able to kind of smack the bolt on the floor. I know you're not supposed to do that. Smack the bolt on the floor just to get this loose, and I cut it off. Yeah, so the smack got it a little bit loose. Now I'll just take it, put my cutters in there, cut it off. That way we don't damage our bolt. See? And then these guys, the other one just slides right off. Remember, one on each side. And I got my new crush washers. I'm gonna throw one on there, put it through my brake line, and then put another one here, and then I'll slap it on the caliper before we lose too much fluid. See, now that we have this kind of flaring out a little bit, it looks kind of big because I didn't put the bigger spindle on yet, but it won't interfere with anything when you're turning, so that's just about good. We'll wipe the brake fluid off again since it's not going to leak anymore. We can take the caliper off, and then we can just take the caliper and set it right here on the lower control arm so it's not hanging by the line. The caliper's an 18, so we're going to break it loose, and then we'll just use the electric gun to get the rest off. That's it right here. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna take the ABS bolt off. It's a Torx, so I'm using a T30 with an extension. There's two mounts, one on the hub, and then there's another one that mounts to the back of the spindle. So we'll take those out too. Take the bolt, put it to the side or throw it to the side. That size is a 10 millimeter. Cool thing about this bolt is it has a little keeper on it. Keeps the bolt with the bracket, so you don't gotta worry about that. Take it, throw it to the side. Worry about that later. So the hub is a 1/2 inch. So before we do that, if you don't pull this off, you're not gonna be able to get the rotor off. Now you can pull the rotor off, set it down somewhere safe. Now we can focus on taking the hub off without having all that weight on there. Got all 4 bolts. Grab this, and the dust shield comes with it, so we'll put those somewhere safe. We're gonna finish taking these off. So it's 18. These ball joints do spin, so on the bottom of the threaded area there is a place to put an Allen wrench in so that you can hold the ball joint steady while you get the nut off. Same for the bottom. And then on the bottom it is going to be a 15/16. Like I said, there's a little area where you can smack it with a hammer to break the ball joint. So let me show you that real quick. So right here, the little blob is on the back, and on the bottom it's on the back too. So you just got to get those bolts loosened. Don't take them all the way off, just loosen them to the end. That way when you do pop the joint, these don't fall off and hit you. Okay, it's almost all the way off. Now we'll do the top. Woo! There it goes. Luckily that big jolt broke the bottom one loose too, so we're good to go. And here's our stock spindle. Let's take a quick comparison of the stock spindle and the MaxTrack one. They're just about exactly the same height, and you can see where the hub mounts are. MaxTrack one is sitting a lot lower. That's what gives you your 4 inches of lift. So it doesn't change any of your suspension geometry. And looking at the ball joint for the tie rod, they're at the same height and the same angle. So that's good. So there's really nothing else to see here, guys. We're just gonna take everything, do the reverse steps, and put it back on. I just used a pry bar, jammed it anywhere, and then I just pry the upper arm right down in there so I can get the bolt in there. We're gonna put the hub on. You notice these have red Loctite on them. Just to be sure, you lose your hub, you lose your wheel. So I'm just gonna throw a little bit of blue Loctite on there. Blue Loctite is not the end of the world. You can still get it off. Now I did look up the torque specs for this because we're gonna be torquing just about everything. The hub torque spec right here is 96 foot-pounds. Now we're good to put the caliper back on. Caliper torque specs are 59 foot-pounds and then 30 to 45 degrees. That means after 59, you turn it 30 to 45 degrees, which is half of a quarter turn. Now with the ABS line, you're going to want to take off this clip right here because it's obviously not long enough now. Give us a little bit more room now, and just make sure that you have full movement so you don't freaking break it. So I would just put a zip tie or two right here, and then we got full movement, so we're good. So now we're going to torque the upper ball joint and the lower ball joint. The lower control arm ball stud nut, 48 foot-pounds and 60 to 75 degrees. So 48 foot-pounds and almost a quarter turn. That's for the front lower ball joint. Now for the front upper, it says 37 and 90 degrees. That's good enough. Okay guys, now that we're done with all of the spindles and the bolts and the torquing and all that stuff, now we have to bleed the brakes. So you notice when we changed the brake lines, we did lose a lot of brake fluid. So, hi Missy. So you have to add brake fluid. Now the truck takes .3, so if you have .3, use .3. .4, the only difference is it has a higher boiling point, but you can mix them together, but you're probably not going to have the .4 effects because you have 98% .3 and 2% .4, but I just did that. I filled it up to the max line. Now what I'm gonna have my helper in there, she's gonna press the brakes while I bleed the system. Now, probably going to bleed the one closest to the line first, the bleeder port on the inside, and then we're gonna do the outside. I have my line, my water bottle, and my 10mm wrench. You're gonna press 3 times, I'm gonna tell her to hold. That's when I'm gonna open the valve just for a quick second, and then you're gonna close it again right away, and then she's gonna do 3 pumps again, and then open the valve and close it right away. Holding?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're good on the inside.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we're good on this side. Yeah, after you do this a few times, you need to check your fluid, make sure you're not gonna run too low, you're gonna start sucking in air, because then you gotta bleed the whole system. Okay, now just to be safe, we're gonna bleed both sides one more time, just because it only took a few minutes. Now we're gonna go back to the other side, and then we're gonna make sure all these are tight, we're gonna wipe them off, and then we're done. Okay guys, here's the finished product of the Max Track 4-inch lift spindle on my 2017 diesel Colorado. The reason why I chose these lift spindles is because not a lot of lift kits are diesel compatible. So I was originally going to do a coil spacer and a body lift, but you can't do the body lift with the diesel only because you're lifting the body away from the motor, and it has a mechanical clutch fan. So if you lift the radiator away from the motor, you have to take the fan shroud off, and then you're not going to get the proper cooling. So that's the reason why I didn't do the body lift. The coil lift wasn't enough for me. However, Max Track offers a 6.5-inch lift kit, which is these 4-inch spindles, and a 2.5-inch coil spacer. So if you wanted more lift out of this, you could buy their kit with a coil spacer. I did not. I only bought the 4-inch spindle, and the 4-inch kit comes with a 2-inch block, but I didn't buy the kit, I just bought the spindle. That's the story of my Duramax Diesel Colorado. The reason why I did not, I repeat, do not get the body lift for this truck, because it will not work properly. Now when you're done, you got the brake lines on, you got the, everything, the whole kit on, everything's torqued. You think, yeah, you can put your wheel on, you're good to go. Well, you really can't, not yet, because this stud right here is going to block you from putting your wheel on. I for sure have to put the factory wheels back on to get it to the shop. That's where my aftermarket wheels and tires are. I have to get it to the shop, so I guess if you're running enough backspacing, you won't even touch that with the wheel, but I'm going to cut it. I'm kind of bummed I have to cut it, because the reason why that's there is so just in case the ball joint spins, you can put a socket on there or a wrench or something like that to get it to not spin. Now they want you to cut 1/2 inch off it. You're just about going to cut the whole little nub off, and for future problems, you're going to have to trash the ball joint to get it off. So hopefully we won't be taking it off for a while, but we do have to cut 1/2 inch off of this. So we're just gonna measure 1/2 inch, go get an angle grinder, and then we're just gonna cut both sides off real quick. Of course, the freaking inside of the rim hits the balance weight on the wheel, but I need to get it to the shop, so there's only one thing I can do here, and I'm pretty sure you're thinking the same thing. We're gonna take that weight off, because we're gonna drive at 30 miles without balance tires. Good to go. Woo, she's gonna be leaning, boys. Oh snap. Oh my God, she's a new truck. I got it aligned, mounted, balanced, so we're good to go. And it looks great. The speedometer, of course, is 5 miles per hour off, but I don't know if you guys can hear the road noise. It's insanely loud. I got my shocks, I got my Adeliefs right here. I got them from 4-Wheel Parts. Shout out Brandon, thank you for helping me out. I got these Fox 2.0 series shocks. These are basically for a Chevy Colorado with a 1-inch lift. So it's a little bit longer than stock. Here's the part number right there. Chevy Colorado 4-wheel drive rear. I don't think that matters. 4-wheel drive or 2-wheel drive. 0 to 1-inch lift. Here is the Adeliefs. It comes with longer bolts to bolt your leaf pack together. We're gonna get out to the truck and start taking everything apart. Here is our Adeleaf, right? You want to make it biggest to smallest. So in my case, it's going to go between the overload spring, I believe that's what it's called, and then here is the actual leaf pack. They're all connected together. So we want to put this in the middle. So what we're going to have to do, we're going to do one side at a time. You want to undo your ABS wire because you're going to have to finagle your rear end around a little bit, and also your brake lines. So you need to be very careful. We're going to have to find a way to take some tension off of these brake lines because they're already fully extended and they're pretty tense. So what we're going to do here is we're gonna loosen all 8 of these U-bolt nuts just to get it loose. And then we're gonna do one side at a time. That way the wheel doesn't freaking fall or anything like that. We can take out the bump stop, and then there's gonna be a bolt holding all of these together. So loosen everything, pull this off, pull the U-bolts off, and then we're gonna put a jack under the axle so the axle doesn't fall. I got the U-bolts off, I got the suspension off. There's the bolt we're gonna be messing with. So now all I gotta do is I'm just gonna let down the jack slowly, separate everything from the pack, and you're gonna have to get that bolt out. So that's why you're gonna have to take this and you're gonna have to either drop it like 6 inches further down, or you're gonna have to push it over out of the way like I'm going to right now. See how it's pushing? So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna loosen this bolt. We're gonna take the bolt out, and then it should drop this rear spring. And these 2 springs in the spring pack aren't bolted, so you can slide them over. Now we take our bolt, take your nut off of it. Our add a leaf, we're gonna put it on. Like that. Drop the bolt down. We're gonna feed it through. Now we have it fed through these 2. Now we're gonna have to slide these back over. You might have to move your axle over a little bit, just enough. Get your bolt through the last one, bring it all the way through, and then you can move the axle back over. Let our nut on. It's gonna take a while. Make sure all your plates are straight, all your springs are straight. Just tighten as much as you can until you start feeling tension, because you don't want to strip it. Now we'll slide the stud inside the perch. There we go, it's in. And now we can use the jack to our advantage and jack it up to help get rid of that gap. Okay, so after I get it tight enough, I put the U-bolts and the nuts back on, and I tighten them all evenly to the point where the pack is completely compressed. As you can tell, now I have more slack in this bolt to bring it all the way down. Now I can snug it up. You can use the bolt to tighten it, but you don't want to risk stripping these out because it's kind of a lot of pressure, because that add a leaf has such a heavy arch to it. Now that the spring pack is tight, we have to cut this to length. That way we could put our bump stop back on. As you can see, there's a little gap in there. You gotta put that back on, and then you gotta put the U-bolts inside of there to hold that in place. Just cut the nubs off with an angle grinder. Got plenty of room. There you go, freaking ooga dooga those motherfrickers back on. And we're ready to roll. As for the shocks, let's go over this. The passenger side's pretty easy. You can get right to that bolt. Matter of fact, you can pretty much see it from here. On the driver's side, oh my Lanta. If you have a diesel, you're screwed. No, I'm just kidding. If you have a diesel, you notice there's this big freaking tank here. I believe this is the diesel exhaust fluid tank, and it is totally in the way of the upper bolt for the shock. See the bolt? It hits the side of the tank. So you know what you gotta do? You gotta drop the tank. There's a few in the front. There's one right there, and you can see the one on the other side. There's a saddle bolt that kind of holds it in a saddle, but it's not touching it, as you can see. It's just it's sitting, I don't know, quarter inch above it. I loosened that one too, but I didn't pull it off. So yeah, we have 1, 2, and then on the back, it's kind of hard to tell above the spare tire, there is 2 nuts. Let's see if we could, oh, there they are. See, there's one right there, and there's one over there. I took those out, not all the way, but you could just loosen them just enough. What I did was I took a pry bar in between this mount right here. I pried it down enough to slide the bolt on top, and I was able to get it out. I'm about to bolt them up right now. You can also use, you know, the jack to finagle the rear end, you know, up or down, so you don't have to compress the shock and it'd be a pain. So we're just gonna do that real quick, and then that's it. We're gonna put the wheels on. Okay guys, the Broline is just about gone. This add a leaf actually is pretty good, and plus with the Fox shock combination, it actually rides, I don't want to say better, but it just feels like more controlled. Because the other shock, I noticed it had about almost an inch of dead spot before it started doing anything. I'm glad I did the add a leaf, because as you guys can see, my trailer is freaking huge, and we pull it with this truck. I got these really cool freaking, they look like Duramax mirrors. And you know, they have switchback lights on them. They're white LED, and then the turn signal goes to orange LED. I actually already made a video on that, and I have to edit it. But these mirrors they're called Boosted Auto mirrors. Company Boosted Auto sells them. We're gonna park this thing back in the driveway, and we'll compare our measurements. Okay, hopefully I don't bore you guys. I'm gonna start at the top of the paper. I wrote all my information on here. So on the front, I have a 4-inch max track spindle lift. On the rear, I have an 1.5 inch Pro Comp add leaf. So I have a 2017 Chevy Duramax Colorado, and here is the stock wheels and tires on the Z71, and then the wheels and tires I put on. So the stock wheels are 17x8 plus 33 offset with a 255/65 tire. My fuel wheels are 17x8.5 plus 7 offset with a 285/70. So the difference between wheels and tires, I have it right here. Tire height gain 34 millimeters, which is about 1.3 inches. Let's just round it up to 1.5 to make things easy. So I took 2 measurements, no lift stock wheels, and then with the lift and aftermarket wheels. These tires are basically 33s, and the reason why I do this is because they're technically 32.7s. So the measurement I did was from ground to fender. So driver front, I'm not going to say it all, but before and after, the difference is 5.5 inches in the front and about 3.5 in the rear. Now these are approximate because like this one have an 1/8 here, so 5.5 and 3.5. So if you subtract the lift from the tires, 1.5 inches from the tires, so if it's a 4-inch front lift, so that means 4-inch front lift, 1.5 inch tire lift, so 5.5 inches total. And then the rear, it's 1.5 inch add leaf, and it's 1.5 inch tire gain. So what that's telling me is it should be 3 inches, but since it's 3.5, that's saying this add leaf gave me a 2-inch lift, which is not surprising. I'm not too worried about it, only because I just put this leaf in. I took the truck for, I don't know, a 10-minute drive around the block. I'm sure it's gonna settle more because that leaf had a pretty hefty curve to it. I'm pretty sure it's gonna settle more, and it's probably gonna end up being 1.5 inches. Now the reason why I did not get the full max track kit, because it comes with the 4-inch spindle in the front and the 2-inch lift block in the rear. I did not get the lift block because I'd rather have the add leaf, because you know, the big trailer I tow. So the add leaf will give you more tongue weight. It will support, I don't know what it is, maybe 750 pounds extra with the add leaf, so your truck doesn't sag to the freaking floor. So the add leaf gave me the lift I need, you know, so it almost gave me the same amount as the lift blocks, but it also gives me the advantage of having extra payload capacity. So at the end of the day, this is where we're at. We got, from this whole setup, we got 5.5 inches in the front, 3.5 in the back. That's perfect because this truck comes like a 2-inch rake. So that's telling me that this truck is just about level. It's not 100% level. You can see it's still kind of, it's higher in the front, but that's the way I like it anyways. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this little video. It's a little different than the norm. I know we always working on race cars, but gotta take care of the tow pig too. So we got new wheels and tires on there. We got a nice lift on there, and it was all fairly inexpensive. So if you guys want to know how much money it cost me to do all this to my truck, just let me know. Maybe I'll just make a quick video on it. But right now I feel like this video is a little bit too long. I feel like I did a lot of explanations, and so if you guys want to do this to your truck, or if you have any questions, hit me up. It was pretty easy, I would say. All in all, it's about I'd say it's about 5 hours worth of work to do all this. I did it all in my driveway, you know, using a jack and jack stands, and that's just where we're at, guys. I want to thank you for watching. This is Archer and Garza from Solid Modified. I'm out, guys. See you later.